Voting is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. First, our major stories for tonight. A baobab tree fell on the Kukwet Malum District Medical Center in Fumban. It is located in the west region of Cameroon today, claiming one life and injuring several others. The impact caused extensive damage to the medical facility. Meantime, the injured persons are currently being treated at a nearby hospital. We'll tell you more in this news edition. And also we'll tell you how in a controversial event that took place in Boya, which is a chief town of the southwest region, some youths from the southwest region of Cameroon endorsed President Paul Biya's candidacy for the upcoming presidential election. Despite being in power for over 40 years now, with many Cameroonians still facing economic and social hardship, these youths claim to have unwavering faith in President Paul Biya's leadership and vision. That's our top story tonight. Stay with us for greater details. Thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. The 5th edition of the National Communications Council Coffee Talk has ended today in Douala, with journalists taking an engagement to bar the way for the propagation of hate speech and disinformation in the media in Cameroon. Day 2 of the event was also an opportunity to review the flow of fake news and the perfection of quality news dissemination in the country. We have greater details with Fumban Sanda.
The second and last day of the National Communication Council's coffee talks with journalists in Douala in the Littoral region focused on ways and the necessity to counter hate speech on the media.
We are working with specialized institutions. We will be putting in place a fact-checking mechanism unit within the council within the next couple of weeks that will help Cameroonians to be able to debunk or uphold information from the social media which are not correct or need some correction. So we'll have a fact-checking unit which we are working on, and we are lucky to work with Antique that has put in place a software for that purpose.
The event also featured exchanges and exposés on the different genres of journalists, news report, and the place of editorials.
We also have recordings of all what is broadcast in Cameroon, both in the print and electronic media. And so we go back to those stories, we watch them ourselves, we look at the language that has been used, and we take decisions based on what the law says about when an article is written or a report is done in that manner.
The 5th edition of the National Communication Council's Coffee Talks comes within a context marked by political agitations ahead of the 2025 presidential election and the prevalence of hate and divisive tendencies on mainstream and social media in Cameroon. While in the city of Douala, the National Communication Council notes that the hate is spread by invitees on talk shows and media debate.
In the same vein, critics accuse the National Communication Council, NCC, of selectively targeting critical voices and stifling dissent in Cameroon's media landscape. In response, the National Communication Council President Joseph Chebonken Kalabupse asserts that these claims are unfounded, emphasizing that journalists are summoned solely in relation to professional and deontological matters. Let's take a listen to him in this excerpt.
That's a criticism which is not founded, based on the fact that we summon individuals based on accusations or facts that we have, and when they come, we compare it with professional ethics and deontology, and it might interest you to note that it's not the council that usually does self-referral, that is summon individuals for press offenses. Sometimes we have complaints, and so when somebody feels slighted, he or she reports to the council, and we verify the information. We have fact-checking units. We also have recordings of all what is broadcast in Cameroon, both in the print and electronic media. And so we go back to those stories, we watch them ourselves, we look at the language that has been used, and we take decisions based on what the law says about when an article is written or a report is done in that manner.
Now, asked on why the NCC is more interested in flocking, or better still, punishing journalists rather than helping them meet up with the professional standards, the NCC president highlights the delicate balance between regulating the media and promoting press freedom. He emphasized that the council strives to create an environment that allows journalists to operate freely while adhering to professional standards. Once more, let's take a listen to Joseph Kalabupsi in this excerpt.
When you bring somebody to book, it's equal to sanctioning. But when you say we flog journalists, I would say no. We don't sanction systematically. We sanction when there is an error or a professional error made. Coffee talks like what we've had in Douala is meant to build capacities. And I'm sure that smart journalists have learned much, because there's no age in learning and there's no time when you stop learning. So from these coffee talks we've had in Douala, I'm very convinced that smart guys and smart ladies have been able to learn something that will add to their professional capacities in trying to handle issues in their different media organs. I think we are on a good footing because if you look at what is happening in the country, I would say that the press is daring, and it's not in every situation that the press is incriminated. There are things that go on the media, and also the fact that even when things are said on the media and are said properly, criticisms are made and are done properly and professionally, we allow things go. We don't sanction. And we believe that the council, besides its role as a regulatory organ, is responsible for promoting press freedom in the country. And that's why when journalists are arrested or molested in the course of the exercise of their duties, the council intervenes and tries to ensure that the journalist is liberated.
Chebonken Kalabupsi, president of the National Communication Council, speaking on the microphone of Equinoxe television. Now to something else. Security forces at the Central Police Station in Bamenda have intercepted a truck carrying a large quantity of marijuana. The vehicle, initially thought to be transporting crates of beer, were found to be concealing 25 bags of marijuana, each weighing at least 30 kilograms. The illicit cargo was reportedly bound for Douala. We have greater details with our Northwest Chief Correspondent, Mbo Stella.
It was just another long-distance delivery truck stacked with crates of beer making its way from Kumbo through Bamenda towards Douala. Beneath the crates of beer were carefully concealed 25 tightly packed bags of cannabis totaling over 700 kilograms. At Ndamukong in Bamenda 3 subdivision, its journey came to an unexpected halt.
Early in the morning of Thursday, I received an information concerning the bags of cannabis. We sat first and discussed. Then I told my collaborator that if it's true that it's more than 20 bags, that means it can only be a truck. So now we were looking for trucks. This is how we succeeded around, let's say 9 p.m. around Damukong.
The driver and his assistant were immediately arrested. Authorities believe the operation may be part of a larger drug trafficking network using legitimate-looking cargo to move contraband across regions. The forces, however, salute the vigilance of the population.
So it's somebody, a Cameroonian, who came and gave me the information That means the collaboration is very good now with population. I'm just encouraging them to continue because it will be very, very difficult for police only.
This latest seizure is the biggest in such a large quantity. Authorities say they have launched investigations to track down those involved in the network.
From the northwest region, we now move straight away to the west region of Cameroon, where a devastating incident occurred in the early hours of today, that is April 29th, in Fumban, where a baobab tree fell on the Kukwet Malum District Medical Center, resulting in 1 death and several injuries. The fallen tree caused significant damage to the main building. The injured survivors have been admitted at the Fumban Annex Hospital, where they are currently receiving treatment. Ese Lucilengu is a lady on that story.
On the night of the 28th to 29th of April in Kunkwa Malum, Fumban in the West region, where a baobab tree fell on the main building of the Kunkwa Malum Health Center, causing significant damage. This resulted in the death of 1 person and several others injured in the early hours of Tuesday. I was on duty when the heavy rainfall began. I left the maternity ward for another, where I was waiting for the rain to cease. Suddenly, I heard something falling on the roof. I can't explain the miracle, but I found myself in the hospital. The tree was uprooted due to the stormy heavy rainfall that hit the locality throughout the night. Following the tragedy, Mayor Tumaimo Patricia Ndamjoya promised that the council will facilitate the reconstruction of the hospital. She was speaking during the funeral mass of one of the victims. Dam Joretu, a pharmacist at the hospital, was one of the victims, and her burial took place in Konga, a neighborhood at the entrance of Fumban. We must try to understand the extent of what happened in relation to everything that has been said, and we are worried why nature is becoming more and more furious. Currently, the injured individuals are receiving treatment in the Fumban Annex Hospital.
Je plaide devant Madame le Maire, si vraiment on peut prouver.
In the meantime, a medical officer of the destroyed health center is seeking help from the council and the community.
Now to something else. A staggering 43% of women aged between 15 to 49 years in Cameroon have experienced domestic violence. According to a recent report, this alarming statistics is attributed to the fact that victims have the tendency of staying quiet in the midst of this adversity. In an interview, a female protection advocate and psychologist emphasized on the importance for women to speak out against abuse and also prioritizing their safety when their lives are being threatened. We have greater details with Mala Glory.
Violence in Cameroon, it is imperative to end the culture of silence among men and women, but especially women.
When women start to denounce and also start to speak about the violence that they have been experiencing, maybe in their relationship, maybe in their marriage, it will also inspire other people, other survivors to speak.
Over the years, women tend to be the main victim of abuse in their marriages and at the workplace, as it affects their psychological, physical and emotional feelings. According to Then Caroline, a feminist, women faced with such situations should leave the toxic relationship.
Most of Cameroonian women have been raised to, like they say, you have to support the marriage. So we as women, we have the tendency to stay even in a violent situationship. But my advice is that after denounce or maybe after breaking the silence, there is a need to leave the house first because your life is in danger, so you need...
Maurice Somo, a social psychologist, say most African women, or rather Cameroonians, believe divorce is a taboo.
Et aujourd'hui, c'est comme une humiliation pour une femme d'être avec un homme et plus tard d'être toute seule.
According to female protection advocate, there is a high need of sensitization campaign in order to create awareness, and above all, the government needs to revisit laws protecting victims of domestic violence.
Maryland authorities need to really adopt a specific law to fight GBV in Kenya. It's also important to the government to build enough a safe place for women. We have seen it in Côte d'Ivoire, where we see the first lady there.
In a recent report published in 2024 by the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, at least 67 women have died as a result of gender-based violence in Cameroon.
Now to something else. Opposition political leaders and some political analysts have decried what they call the manipulation of youths of the Southwest region for political gains. Their reaction follows the Boya youth gathering in the Southwest region that ended in support for President Paul Biya's candidacy in the upcoming presidential elections in Cameroon. Dominated by the presence of the CPDM party officials and effigies, the event reportedly saw the contribution of at least 5 million francs CFA for the candidacy. We have greater details with Babila Jonathan.
This gathering of young people converged on Bongo Square in the Southwest Regional Capital Boya to thank the head of state and the government for the effort to improve their living conditions has generated convergent and divergent reactions. Some of them are militants of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, while others are sympathizers. While some analysts disapprove of such gatherings in a region plagued by security tensions for over 8 years, and considering the difficult socio-economic situation of the country, others think it is normal to be grateful for what has already been done.
It does not reflect any reality because what we experience in the field, it has nothing to do with what we see by some fabricated. And I know why will they target the youths? Because they know that they are responsible for the more than 70 to 80% frustration that the youths are undergoing.
Cameroonian youths that we know, and in many quarters, what they do and what they have been doing in their thoughts and their desperateness has come to a level where political elites continue to use them as agents of propaganda.
The youths are appreciating the efforts of the government in struggling to solve the issues or the problems that they are facing. And they've seen the government do its best in the circumstances. Don't forget, the insecurity situation is caused by some of us. They believe that those carrying guns, for example, will soon drop those guns and come back to their senses. And the youths of the Southwest are noticing it, are seeing it. They are seeing the effort the government is putting into it to make sure that everything comes back to normal.
It is also qualified as politically motivated manipulation by the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement. This point of view is substantiated by the young people's call for President Biya's candidacy in the forthcoming presidential election and the mobilization of funds for campaigns.
Those are all manipulations and fabrications by some individuals who are using the youth for their own personal benefit. To me, it's pure manipulation.
What can we do at a time when youths of such a nation cry behind and again in public manifest a state of irresponsibility, supporting that who has been in power for over 43 years, to others for more than half a century? And many are thinking, what is behind that this particular leader was supposed to do, and for this 43 years he has not done, and that he's going to do it in the next 7 years.
People do their things out of their own personal and private conviction. Why should another person who doesn't share the point of view think they're being manipulated? I don't think so. Those kids, you call them kids, are adults. Most of them are above 21, and they're matured enough to know what is right from what is wrong. They've decided to say, look, what I see on the ground, I appreciate it.
Meantime, the political atmosphere continues gaining steam as the 2025 presidential election draws near.
Babila Jonathan reporting there. Major General René-Claude Menka, Chief of the Defense Staff, is on a strategic mission to assess security in various regions ahead of the major events, that is the May 20th celebration and also the presidential elections that comes up in the month of October. In Douala, he evaluated the security situation and directed army staff to intensify operations against enemy groups. The goal is to ensure a peaceful environment for citizens to exercise their voting rights. Innocent Aze reports.
Major General René-Claude Menka, Chief of the Defense Staff, arrived in Douala as part of his mission to monitor and assess the security situation for the first half of 2025. At the command post of the 2nd Joint Military Region, the Chief of the Defense Staff chaired a closed-door working session during which the various officials took turns presenting the security situation in their respective areas of responsibility. The implementation of the Chief of the Defense Staff's latest recommendations and the intensification of offensive operations have resulted in a significant reduction in the capacity of the enemy forces to cause harm.
He congratulated us for what is done on the field and he advised us to stay vigilant. Normally when he comes, it's just to make sure that the instructions that he's given at the strategic level are implemented at the tactical level.
These are the fruits of closer collaboration with the local population, and despite some sporadic terrorist attacks, indicators of a return to normal life are increasingly visible. In his new recommendations, the Chief of the Defense Staff instructed the various officials to intensify offensive operations and collaboration with the local population to eradicate these threats consisting of opportunistic groups and organized armed gangs, prelude to major future events.
This year, due to the special event that all the Cameroonians are waiting for, the General specially came to make sure that everything will go itch-free. He wanted to make sure that the populations will be able to carry out their duties without fearing any security issue.
The Chief of the Defense Staff was accompanied for the occasion by Major General Baba Sule, Chief of Army Staff, Brigadier General Mahamat Ahmed Kotoko, Commander of the National Firefighting Brigade, and Brigadier General Elokobi Daniel Njok, Central Director of Coordination at the National Gendarmerie. After Douala, Major General René-Claude Menka, Chief of the Defense Staff, will travel to Boya, Southwest Region, for similar exercise.
And now we talk religion. One day after the burial of Pope Francis, bishops of Cameroon met at Marimbuk, a pilgrimage center in the Senegal Maritime Division of the Lithera region, for the pilgrimage of peace, which doubles as the Feast of Divine Mercy. Our reporter Annabella was with the bishops in Marimbuk, where the first Roman Catholic Church was built in Cameroon by the Palatine Fathers some 130 years ago. Her report.
The Apostolic Nuncio to Cameroon, bishops of all dioceses and archdioceses of the country gathered at Marienburg, several kilometers away from Edea, for this year's annual pilgrimage for peace. During his homily on the Feast of the Divine Mercy, the President of the National Episcopal Conference, His Grace Andrew Nkeya, says the gospel is not disconnected from the life of the people.
It was to call our attention to the difficulties that we go through, and that together as a Cameroonian people, we ask God for mercy. And as I said, if we ask God together as one people for mercy, God will not refuse us.
Talking about Marienburg, the holy place holds a very significant position in the existence of the Catholic Church in Cameroon. It was in this village, far off the town of Edea in the Senegal Maritime Division, that the Palatine Fathers founded and erected the very first Roman Catholic Church in the country beside the banks of the Senegal River.
Puisque c'est ici que les premiers missionnaires sont arrivés. Quand ils sont arrivés,
His Grace Samuel Cleda of the Douala Archdiocese says whenever a Christian, especially a clergy, finds the south here, it feels like finding their Christian roots.
Pour retrouver en fait nos racines.
Jules Joro Rogendio is a Palatine Reverend brother from Rwanda. He, just like other brothers from Congo and other African countries, acknowledges feeling the spirit of the church whenever he finds himself at Marienburg.
Very impression to be here in this area where the first Catholic church was founded. It gives a courage to continue the mission.
Thousands of Christians attended the High Pontifical Mass, minding less the weather and the distance from Edea, just to be part of the pilgrimage in Marienburg. They came through the Sanaga River, which is just behind me. They were the Palestine fathers and founded the very first Roman Catholic Church in Cameroon here at Marienburg. Reporting live from Marienburg, some 30 kilometers away from the town of Edea, we are Eko Kalobe, Anabila Leke for Equinoxe Television.
Thanks a bunch, Staff Lady Anabila, for that report. In the same vein, the Vatican press officer has announced that the conclave to elect a new pope for the Roman Catholic Church will take place on Wednesday, May 7th at the Sistine Chapel. Anabila once more explains to us what a conclave actually means. Her report.
Wednesday, May 7, 2025, cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church will gather for the Papal Conclave, the centuries-old tradition through which a new head of the Catholic Church is elected. The Vatican spokesperson Matteo Bruni announced the date of the conclave after the fifth congregation of cardinals that was on Monday. The congregation was attended by more than 180 cardinals. About 100 of them will be electors in the forthcoming conclave, since cardinals older than 80 are not eligible to vote. The spokesperson of the Vatican adds that several cardinals spoke during the congregation on issues including the church and its relationship with the world and how a new pope would need to be able to navigate the challenges that lie ahead as the conclave ends. What then is the meaning of a conclave in the Roman Catholic Church? Simply put, a conclave is the assembly of cardinals that elect a pope. The word conclave itself comes from the Latin word cum and clavis, meaning together and key respectively, highlighting the absolute behind-closed-door secrecy with which the cardinals conduct their discussions and balloting. The conclave assembles during the interregerium, which is a time period which begins after a pope's death and ends with the election of his successor, and is generally convened between 15 to 20 days after a pope's demise. And the period of time during which the papacy is vacant is also known as the sede vacante, better still, the vacant seat. Cardinals of the church are dressed in red as a sign of willingness to shed their blood for the pope and also for the church. Selecting or electing a pope as part of the conclave is considered a cardinal's highest duty. Cardinals are the highest ranking clergy of the Roman Catholic Church after the pope, and 100 of them from May 7, 2025 will gather at the Sistine Chapel, cut off from all communication with the external world for the election of the next successor of St. Peter.
The report done by Staff Lady Anabila ends this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always choosing us. Stay in the company of more interesting programs. Coming up next, the program Equinoxe Otu and his guest. From us to you over there, have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye for now.